Good morning, Douglas. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. Dude, I got to tell you something. I love you in this movie because you really make me, I was just as nervous. I looked at my own fears. I studied everything that you were doing to figure out how you were going to figure this out. And I mean, there are going to be so many people that are going to relate with Tanner in this movie.
Thank you. Thank you for watching it. It was a trip to play, you know, yeah. I mean, we made the film 2 years ago, but I watched it when we went to the film festivals with it in the fall, and then I rewatched it this weekend just to sort of refresh my memory before doing these interviews, and I enjoyed it more having, as an actor, when you have more space from something, you can sort of I'll never be truly objective, but it's interesting as time goes on. I can get closer to having an audience perspective of it. But yeah, it was a small movie. It wasn't super long as far as the shooting schedule, but it was intense. It was every day, just going into, really sort of deep, dark places.
I've seen the movie twice, and I'm going to take it even higher than that. I've experienced the movie twice because there are so many scenes in this movie, especially the dinner scene where you're questioning what you're having for dinner. Little things like that, because people in the family will write things off saying, oh, you're just being a big baby. No. Your fear was genuine, and it really hopefully will teach people to listen to other people's nervousness and anxiety.
Yeah, and then the tricky thing is, what's the line between being an enabler and being an empathetic, compassionate partner, and it's kind of an unwinnable hurdle that they have to face. And I think, I don't know how much to spoil as far as so I might not go too much further on that branch, but yeah, it's tricky because, you could argue that she's enabling things, and as the plot progresses, she really starts to, enable. I mean, she's motivated with the best intentions. It's tough.
Yeah, because she does. She just wants Tanner to face his fears. I mean, exposure therapy was something that I had to Google it. I don't know how many times I hit Google while watching this movie.
Oh wow, yeah. I mean, it's all. So Peter has been, open with talking to various media about his struggles with OCD and intrusive thoughts and exposure therapy, and it's a story that's very close to him. Mm-hmm. And the more psychological thriller aspects of it were not autobiographical, but the other stuff was, and so he kind of made a film where it was marrying the two. So he was the main resource as far as the rehearsal process and in the shooting process. It's always very helpful when you're working with a filmmaker that knows the material like that, on a personal level. It's the best resource to have as an actor.
Yeah, because I mean, he's always been known for doing creative twists, and it's one of those things where it's like, because he knew what kind of a chance he could take, and he takes a lot of chances in this movie, but there's a payoff.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I agree with you. I hope others do as well. There's a point where maybe you're watching it and you're wondering, why are we spending all this time with this exposure group and and these other characters? But that was really important to Peter. I know that because the movie, I think, clocks in at an hour and 50 minutes, and I can almost bet that he had conversations with distributors that maybe wanted him to cut some of that stuff out to bring the runtime down to a cool 90. I think it was really important to him to tell the story the way he told it. And thankfully he was still able to get a distributor and get a release. But yeah, it's interesting. I was most fascinated when reading it. I was most fascinated with the very beginning, being in the office and obsessing over the particles in the bottled water, and because I love when you're opening the door at the office. I love shooting that where we jump cut it from the office to like landing in the shed where he had been abducted. I thought it was a really interesting way to sort of visualize the war that's going on inside Tanner's head. I thought there was some really creative things that he employed, especially with a limited budget, because there's only certain things that'll look good when you're making an indie movie, as opposed to, a movie with the budget of like Deadpool or something like that.
See, those are my favorite kind of movies, the indie films and the limited budget. And the reason why is because it's like being on a live stage somewhere on Broadway or in a theater in Butte, Montana, because you've got to get it right as quickly as possible. And you've got to, it's like being live as a jock on the radio. You got 16 seconds to talk on that song intro. Make it work.
Yeah. I like a lot of independent movies. I don't know. Like last night I watched Tombstone, which independent, but I love that movie too. So I don't know. I don't know. My favorite movies, are kind of like faux independent movies, maybe like movies that are made like Sideways or something, like those sort of focus features movies that are they're operating with a budget that's still like 10 or 20 times that of Exposure, but they like the specialty wing or arm of a studio, or I guess now they're like Neon movies or A24 movies. But when I first came into the industry, it was all about the Fox Searchlight or the focus feature kind of level of movie, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, or, those kinds of films. That's like, for me, the sweetest spot, because you have the budget to sort of really tell a story the way you want to tell it. And I'm sure those directors still felt like they never had enough time or enough money. I don't know, but I bet if you ever talk to any filmmaker, they talk about that, it seems. But yeah. I love a lot of indies, but I don't know. I went to a screening outside at the Brooklyn Bridge Park last week or 2 weeks ago, Pulp Fiction. And it was interesting because that movie had the idea, like it had the reputation of being an independent film, but it really wasn't an independent film. Like the movie was made, like I think Tarantino got paid $900,000 just for the script of that, I think their budget was around 9 or 10 million in 90s money, which is like, I don't know, that's like 30 million today, which is the budget of Trapped, like the Josh Hartnett, M. Night Shyamalan movie that came out.
Wow.
But anyways, I don't know. Maybe I'm getting too far afield. I'm a movie geek, so I could talk about.
Me too. Oh my God, I love breaking down movies, and it's just one of those things where it's like I want to know more about the scene. I want to know more about the lighting. I mean, just the fact that with like you brought up the water. That water. I have a coworker that will not let anybody touch a bottle of water. He's got to physically remove himself from the place where he is, come over and get his own water. And if I was going to give it to him, no, he'll throw it down.
Really?
Yeah.
Really, really interesting. Why is that? Do you know?
That's what I tried to figure out in your movie. I was really wanting to know.
Well, hopefully it's not the same reason.
Yeah. Well, you're right, because it's just one of those things. He's a great guy, but you can't get anywhere near him. He will really walk away from you and try to get away from you. And it's like, tell me what your fear is, dude. And I think maybe that might be my attraction to this movie, is that it's like I deal with somebody who is like Tanner.
Well, hopefully it's because, Tanner's like that because he was poisoned with rat poison by his abductor, and he's worried that he's being poisoned at any point, that he is getting something that is unsealed or he doesn't know was not contaminated. So I'm hoping that's not the case with your buddy.
Yeah. How did you prepare for this role? Because, like I said from the very beginning, you pulled this off in a way to where you allowed us to feel what you were feeling.
Thank you. The way we, I don't always prepare in the same way. So with this, the physicality and the dialect I felt was, the physicality was going to just let the sort of the weight of the circumstance kind of rest on Tanner's shoulders and give that kind of movement to him. But as far as like as far as like the actual like scene work and talking about the stakes of the circumstance, I would check in and have conversations with Peter, but there was a certain aspect to the story that I related with that I didn't really want to share with Peter. And I just wanted him to trust that I could put it into the work. And so Uh, that's not typical for me in movies. There are aspects of Tanner that I can relate to that I don't. I'm superstitious. I almost don't want to get into it because I feel like it'll get in the hour. So I actually, when I first got it, that was my worry, was that I was going to work with a director that was going to like really want to talk about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I sort of called my agent. I was like, look, like I could be interested in doing this, I think, but I don't want to, go. I don't want to turn it into like a therapy session that I can't get out of or something. So, if we can make it more about Peter's experience and why Peter wrote the scene and felt the scene should be in the movie, and then I'll let it go into my gears, and I'm more than happy to rehearse too, like rehearse. But I wanted to make sure we kept it more about the character and the circumstances there, and let the personal just kind of come out naturally, and let him, let him judge me from side to side. But I don't normally like have that kind of like request going into something. So I guess that meant that it was closer than I would have liked to my own stuff. But yeah, acting's a weird thing. It's kind of like it's a weird thing. It's talking about acting is always a weird thing to me. I think people that can talk about acting are really impressive, because it's I don't know. I sometimes have a hard time talking about it. It's kind of, for me, it's like almost like you get into a flow state, a flow state. That's like when it is usually the best. But I mean, a lot of it's editing too, man. Like, I mean, Peter's pretty detail oriented, he's very detail oriented. I think maybe some of what you're responding to is just the way he edited it. Yeah. Cause he just like, he's picking up, because as an actor we'll do things and sometimes it won't make it into the movie,
Yeah.
like you'll do like little physical tells and, things, and they don't make it. And so I think maybe, a lot of that is just that's all the edit, this the music too. I think the composer did a really nice job with it.
Yeah, but see, you didn't get to hear that music before the scenes, did you? Because I mean, it fits in there really well.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? No. The composer was hired towards the end of the edit process. I met him at the Newport Film Festival premiere we had in October. And yeah, he came in, I think, in the summer, and we filmed it in the spring, and then the composer came in but wait, I might be missing a whole year. Wait, yeah, because we filmed it in 22 and the premiere wasn't the fall of 22. Yeah, the premiere was the fall of 23. It's crazy keeping the years all together. Because, is that we go from thing to thing, and then, I think halfway through this radio interview circuit I've been doing, I've been thinking that we filmed the film in the spring, and then it went to the Newport Film Festival in the fall. But I remember thinking it took a long time, and I was just thinking in my head, I was like, God, I'm such a brat. Like, it was only a few months, but now it makes more sense. Yes, it was a year plus okay, that makes more sense. Yeah, but no, the music came in later, because I remember actually asking him if he wanted to interview with some friends of mine who are composers when he was. But yeah, no, it was towards the end.
Now, you as an actor, I know as a writer, there are so many things. I'll hear new music, and when I hear that song later on, it takes me back to my books. What about you as an actor? When you're putting a movie like this together, and you're in the car, you're at home, or wherever, and you hear a song, does it take you back to that set? Because there are songs that I hear that puts me back in a radio station in Billings, Montana, or in Charlotte sometime back in the 1980s. What does music do to you?
Yeah, music absolutely is a time machine. Absolutely, for sure. So are certain foods, and
Yes.
when I was watching it, I was thinking I was on a kick at that time where I was constantly going to Starbucks and getting their like cold brew, and I was getting a grande cold brew, but I was asking for it in the big cup, like the venti, and asking for extra ice because it was so hot. I was like, the ice will melt and then it'll stay cold while we filmed it. That may sound really bougie and embarrassing, but that's literally that came to my mind when I was rewatching the film this weekend. I was thinking, like, I drank so much Starbucks coffee, because I can't remember the last time I went to Starbucks now. But I was like a Starbucks fiend. I think about, God, what was the music? Oh yeah, there was a Loving is easy. You got me. There's a song called "Loving Is Easy" that I was introduced to by the first AD of that movie, and then we went to a concert like towards the end of filming to see it.
Wow.
Yeah, the song's called "Loving Is Easy." I can't remember the name of the artist, but we went to the Hollywood Bowl and saw it. So that definitely would transport me to that time. It's funny. Other songs too. Yeah, "Bless the Telephone" by that.
Yeah.
I was listening to that song a lot. "Bless the Telephone." The artist that did most of the music for the Holdovers this year, he's not. I don't think he's still with us. "Bless the Telephone." Labi Siffre. Yeah.
I want to know how you do a movie like this and you have the guts to go to a Starbucks.
It was a drive-through.
Yeah, but what
drive-through in the valley. The one I was talking about. Like Lancashire Starbucks.
So what other projects are you doing right now? Because I mean, like you said, you did this, a couple of years ago. What are you up to now that we can look forward to?
Well, I was just in Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1 that came out in June, and I'm really looking forward to when Chapter 2 gets released. So it's my character, the majority of what I did is in Chapter 2, and so it's going to premiere at the Venice Film Festival in a month, and then they're going to decide how they want to release it. So that's like the thing that's most upcoming, I would say. I did an episode of Superman and Lois that my brother directed. That'll come out this fall. I'll play Jimmy Olsen, the photographer, in a sort of episode of that on their last season. So that'll be kind of cool. I got to make a movie with my old Big Love castmate Amanda called Seven Veils, and that went to the Toronto Film Festival a year ago, and then it went to Berlin earlier this year. Wow. But I still don't know when it'll be released in America. So that's kind of the game, when you make these movies. You just sort of, but yeah. So the thing I'm most looking forward to is Venice Film Festival for Horizon 2, and then I don't know. From there, I'll just, I keep gaming, keep auditioning, keep doing, that's kind of my life in a nutshell.
Well, listeners need to understand. I experienced Horizon on the big screen because I didn't want to watch it on a flat screen TV or watch it somewhere else. And they've got to go and experience it. And I just felt so jealous of my father growing up with all of his Western movies. But now when I have Horizon, it's like, I've got my own Western. This is my movie. This is mine.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I went and saw it. I was at the Cannes Film Festival premiere, and I liked it. It was in the Grand Theatre Lumiere, the biggest screen they have there. But I was really thirsty. The French are really strict. They don't they don't have any water or concessions in the movie theater, and it's it was hot on the Quisette. I'm in a tuxedo, and I was people are shoveling handfuls of water into their mouth from the sink in the bathroom because there's not even a water fountain in there. They're tough over there, man. I tell you, I know it's a very well thought of film festival, but I don't know. I don't think it's the best way to see a movie, honestly. At Toronto or Berlin, they're way more chill. I have to say. I hope I don't ruffle any. I doubt anybody at Cannes Film Festival people are going to be listening to this, but I don't know. I much prefer watching Horizon once I got back home. I watched it on I have a large television. I watched it on my television, and I don't know. I kind of enjoyed it more. Kevin probably will hate if he heard me say that. But I think it's more to do with I was really thirsty when I watched it. I really enjoyed it when I saw it at Cannes, but man, I was thirsty. I couldn't get any water. I was so thirsty. And also I'm also hopped up on all the the adrenaline of the nerves of seeing your movie for the first time. But that said, they're going to show Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 at Venice, which I think it's 6. That would be just under 6 hours. I'm sure there'll be a big break between them, but I think if you're a lover of the Western, I've sort of gotten into Westerns recently. Always loved, like I said, I watched Tombstone last night. I've always loved certain Westerns, but I was listening to the Turner Classic Movie podcast, The Plot Thickens, and they've recently done a multi-episode series on John Ford, and it really got me interested. And also partially some of the articles that were written about Horizon referenced John Ford, and I was like, I've seen The Searchers, and I've seen The Man who shot Liberty Valance, but that's about it. And I was like, I want to see some more. So I sort of decided to make it a project to watch all the John Ford Westerns that were shot in Monument Valley. So that would be like Stagecoach is the first one, then My Darling Clementine, which is the same Wyatt Earp Tombstone story as Tombstone, but Henry Fonda plays Wyatt Earp. And then 2 days ago, I watched Fort Apache with Henry Fonda and John Wayne. So I'm kind of going through it. There's like 7 of them. And it's going to be She Wore Yellow Ribbon, Rio Grande, I think, Searchers, and there's another one. So I'm kind of, right now I'm doing this little like private film retrospective of John Ford Monument Valley shot Westerns. And and actually last night I also watched Tombstone. So I am a bit in, I think Horizon's got me a bit in a Western vibe, but man, those like Stagecoach is insanely good. I don't know when the last time, or if you've ever seen Stagecoach, the 1939 John Ford movie with Henry Fonda playing the Ringo Kid. That movie is awesome. It is awesome.
You got to come back to this show anytime in the future, and I want to just sit down and just break down movies with you, where we can just go through and just talk about them.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
excellent. I mean,
Well, you be brilliant today, okay, sir?
Thank you.